I cannot believe that we're already in the back half of 2024.
Are you kidding me?
But here we are. Before you know it, the calendar will be turning again, and that means we are already getting ready for 2025 conferences, and one that I'm personally very excited to attend again is the Insights EDU Conference. If you care at all about growing enrollment and building a student-centered higher ed experience, you really should be at this conference. Registration is now open, so secure your spot while early bird pricing is still available. Visit insightsedu.com for more information and to register. That's visit insightsedu.com for more information and to register.
Attention.
Registration is now open for the Middle States Commission on Higher Education 2024 Annual Conference, Protecting the Future, Champions for Higher Education, December 11th through 13, 2024 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Don't miss out. Register today at msche.org/annual-conference. We'll see you there.
Hey everybody, this is Elvin Freitas, co-founder of the EdUp Experience, and today we are extremely excited to announce our paid subscription service. By subscribing today, you will get exclusive early access to ad-free episodes, extended episodes, bonus episodes, original content. That's right, original content, and invites to special events, all while helping to sustain EdUp. To become a subscriber, go to edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com and subscribe to our free email newsletter to learn how you can get access. Again, go to edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com.
Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to Ed Up on the EdUp Experience podcast, where we make education your business. This is Dr. Joe Solucio back with you again. You know, if you follow my work, you'll know that I do I would say weekly, but it's been a little sporadic as of late, but I do a weekly newsletter on LinkedIn called the EdUp Wrap-Up. And the EdUp Wrap-Up, typically I profile university presidents that I've interviewed on this podcast, or other leaders too, and really write a summary of my experience interviewing them. And this week, of course, this will be about 3 weeks when I say this week, when this episode comes out. But we've evolved our business model, and I want to just run through a couple of quick things with you all, with you listeners, you EdUppers, as we like to refer to you. You don't know that about yourselves, but Elvin and I, we talk, as corny as that sounds, we talk about our EdUppers. Is that fair? Anyway, we have done a couple of cool things coming. Number one, we have started a subscription service. So we do some extended episodes with leaders on this podcast. We're going to do our normal 40-minute episode, and then with some, we're doing extended episodes, and our subscribers for $2.99 a month will get access to those extended episodes. That is to help sustain this amazing podcast and the equipment that we use, because we have to sustain ourselves somehow. But secondarily that, and more importantly, we have started EdUp editorials. And a little bit of a I think we started this because I got a little upset, and let me tell you why. I had this, what I thought was an amazing article. Not to pat myself on the back, but I was looking at this going, man, this is a pretty good article. And I went and I had to go like pander around to different publications to try to get them to pick it up. And I was getting like, no, it's not right, or, you know, it's kind of, and I just go, maybe we should just start something, because when does the writer within higher education that has something to say that doesn't quite fit into these other publications get a chance to just say, our school is doing great work and we need to talk about it, and here's where it's going to go, without having to beg basically for something to get published? So EdUp editorials off of our site. We are going to publish the work of our colleagues in higher ed who have something to say. That's the only expectation. No word counts, no format counts. If you have something to say, you have an article, you have a blog post, you have something that you think the audience needs to know about, even an opinion you want to opine, EdUp editorials will be there for you. And then lastly, and really exciting, we're going to have a GPT that is going to be able to crawl all 900 plus of our episodes and give people an opportunity to research. You're going to say, what president said this amazing quote? And little did you know, it's the president I'm about to interview today. And you're going to do the search, and she's going to say something incredible, and it's going to tell you exactly what she said, and then you're going to say, cite that for me so I can use that in my report, and bam, it's going to produce a citation. We are very excited about these. evolutions that we have going on. And it's only possible because of you and possible because of our guests. But before I get to our guest and bring her in, I got to bring in my fellow paisan, to my co-host here. Ladies and gentlemen, he's the Vice President of Partnerships at Rise Education. His name is Charlie Anastasi. Charlie, what's going on?
I am excited to be here, and I had so much fun hanging out together at the Middle States Conference last year. I just wish it were in person, but thanks for having us on.
You know why I remember our episode, Charlie? We were sitting across the table for each other, and I remember distinctly that you had broken your wrist or your hand or your arm. Yeah, your wrist.
We're good now.
Yep. And then I was joking with you about the fact that you broke your wrist, and then I looked down at my hand, and I had this huge slice on my thumb, and I was bleeding all over. And I'm like, what is going on? So as much as I was making fun of you, I had my own stuff going on.
And it put me at ease. I didn't want your misfortune to be the reason for that, but it did make me feel a little better.
The expectation that's a pretty high expectation. I don't make myself bleed for every interview I have, but I would for this guest today because I'm excited to have her on. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to bring her in right now. Her name is Dr. Susana Rivera-Mills. She is the president at Aurora University. Susana, welcome to the mic. How are you?
Thank you so much. Doing great. Excited to be here with all of you.
Well, we're excited to have you here, and these episodes get juicier and juicier because of timing. Just when I think things are settling down in higher education, something else happens. FAFSA gets delayed again for the next academic year, and we're so focused on these big delays, and then you go, wait a minute, it's August. Students are coming back onto campuses. There's all this work we have to do. We have to figure out where enrollment landed. We have to figure out how to get all these packages through. Talk to us about Aurora University, where you are, who do you serve, how you serve them, and how are things going?
Absolutely. So you're right. The new normal for higher education now is just change and uncertainty all the time. And I think that we're being pushed to be much more responsive than we have been in the past, even as we go about doing our daily work. I have been the president at Aurora University for 1 year. I'm now going into my second year. And I'd like to share that because I think it tells you something special about AU. I have spent 30 years of my career in public higher education. And I was very particular and very intentional in being part of public higher education because I have been passionate and a strong believer about education's broad access, providing broad access to education, using education for the public good, advocating for underrepresented populations to have access to education. So not in a million years did I see myself working at a private institution. And I'm the first one to admit that I may have been a bit biased in terms of how I defined a private institution as being selective, etc. So fast forward, I'm being recruited for this wonderful position at Aurora University. And in the leadership profile, there's one line that catches my attention. And that line said, Aurora University is a private university with a public mission.
Amazing.
And I just thought, wow, I know what that means. I wonder if they know what that means, right? So I interviewed them at the same time, and I found out that absolutely, we are a private, small university, but our mission is very public. And everything that I have represented over the last 30 years just seemed to be the perfect fit for me to lead this institution at this particular time. So we are a Hispanic serving institution. I would say nearly 40% of our students are first in their families to come to college. 48% of our students are Hispanic. And I would say
48%?
a third, 48%.
Wow.
And a third of them also are Pell eligible. So if you put all those variables together and you think about the intersection, right, of what does that mean today for higher education? Who are we educating? These are the demographics. This is where we're going. We're also a majority minority institution, so we're a minority serving institution. Just to give you an example, our incoming class this fall, 50% of our incoming class, our new students this fall, are students of color. So I was very passionate to see that this is the work of Aurora University. We do, in fact, want to be accessible to students, particularly those that are first in their families to go to college, which of course are near and dear to my heart because I'm also part of that population. And we are designing the services here to support all of our students, but certainly at the same time to have those personalized services for students who might need help in different ways. So that has been our mission, to continue to use AU, and I believe it's true of all of higher education, to be a vehicle to transform lives, to elevate social mobility for our students. And we know that in our students, it isn't just about our students succeeding, because when our students succeed, their families succeed, the next generation succeed. We hear stories all the time of students who tell us, wow, I'm the first one to come to college, but guess what? My little brother, my little sister is coming right behind me. And so that is an amazing transformation.
Epic.
Now, Charlie, I'm going to pass over to you, but one quick follow-up, because the fascinating part of this, for anybody that has looked at your background, you haven't worked at small publics. You've worked at very large publics.
Correct.
And the transition from in your past, you were a provost, and so you're leading thousands probably of faculty and adjunct faculty at these universities. Now you come to a small private. What mindset adjustment have you had to make? I mean, did the first you come in and you go, where's the state funding? And somebody goes, we don't have any of that. And you go, oh yeah. What was that shift like for you?
So here's the interesting thing. We have 7,000 students total. Okay. And what I have found is that at many of the large universities where I have been leading initiatives. And what you will find at large institutions is that many of the initiatives segment that population into what feels like smaller pieces of the large institution. So in effect, you kind of feel like you're working in boutique type of initiatives. And one of the challenges for large universities is, how do we scale? Okay, if we see that something is working for 2,000 students, how do you scale that now to 20,000 students? So I love being at an institution where I have a playbook of things that I know have worked really well. And our size allows us to be nimble and flexible and scale that at an institutional level. And honestly, it's my hope that what we're doing here, kind of an innovation lab of sorts because of our size, can then be shared with other institutions who might be able to scale that even further than we have. So I love this intersection of, I'm bringing in the public experience of what I know works, that has been data informed, leveraging technology at very high levels, very strategic, grant seeking, funding, innovative ways of thinking. But I'm blending that with the flexibility, adaptability, and quick pivoting that a private does offer. So far, so good. I'm enjoying those two worlds.
I like that.
Susana, maybe jumping in on that, because looking at your background experiences and some of the stuff from Oregon State, one thing that struck me is that you've been working on these high impact practices, internships, skill infusion programs, e-portfolios for a really long time. And I think these are some things that get talked about a lot, but implementation can be more challenging in practice. And so as you bring some of these lessons over to Aurora, do you have to do it differently? Is it different for the students at Aurora? Is it the same? Like, what have you learned about bringing over high impact practices as you've gone from institution to institution? What changes? What stays the same?
I think one of the big lessons I have learned is that we as leaders have to pay attention to culture. Okay. You can study best practices and you can have a list of steps of what best practices are, but I like to translate that and call them effective practices. And in my mind, effective practices is where best practice fits into your institutional culture.
Tell them like it is.
It is so key to do that, because what happens, and in my experience, what I have seen is sometimes you can have a great practice that you're bringing from somewhere else, but you don't have buy-in, okay? And it becomes a top-down sort of mandate initiative, and people don't quite know what that means at their level of what they're doing. So I have tried to flip that kind of model. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to bring in the people that are boots on the ground, the ones that are actually going to be making this happen very early in the process so that they can see, they can be part of that initiative, they can provide feedback, they can provide insights into what sometimes the higher level administrative leaders are not quite aware of, and we can get it right from the very beginning. And then when you have buy-in and engagement from your faculty, from your staff who are in the front lines, it becomes a meaningful practice for that institution, and you can move a lot faster. So even though initially it might seem like that process takes longer because you have to have more conversations and education and sharing, once you have that done, it is amazing how quickly you can move that forward. And you know, I have many examples here just in my first year alone. I have brought initiatives that have taken me 3 years to get enough movement elsewhere so that, you know, students begin to be engaged and impacted. I've been able to do it in 1 year here. And so that's part of just kind of understanding that culture and where do you begin to create that momentum and engage people.
Yeah, and I think it's part of the power of a smaller institution, that nimbleness, that flexibility, that adaptability that you mentioned, being able to be pioneers in some of these different initiatives. And as you're going through that answer, you remind me, one of the favorite books that I read over the last couple of years was this book, Failure to Disrupt by Justin Reich. He works at the MIT Teaching Systems Lab. And a lot of what he talks about is, why is there a failure to disrupt when you have this magical piece of technology? Well, you didn't think about the system that it was being deployed and introduced into. And if you don't change the system and it's got decades of embedded practices, it's going to reject that new innovation. And so you mentioned there's a couple of things you've brought. And earlier you mentioned being responsive to students. I'm curious, is there an initiative that you've brought to Aurora that you could unpack a little bit that's responding to students and is finding its feet right now?
Absolutely. There's one that we're very proud of, and it's called Career Skills Infusion. And so at a time, I mean, you both know that right now the rhetoric is such that we're still fighting against the thought of what is the value of higher education, right? That's always being asked. What is my return on investment? If I'm a student and I'm going to end up with some debt at the end of it, is it really worth it for me? So all those questions are still very much front and center. And it's also around career readiness. You know, if I'm investing in this, am I actually going to be ready for my career? Am I going to be able to be competitive? And so what we brought here last year is the Career Skills Infusion Initiative. And it has several prongs to it, okay? The first one is, bottom line, we want our students to graduate and leave us feeling like they can articulate what their college experience does for them and how that translates into real career skills to their future employers. And so, you know, many times we have employers that say, well, you know, we have this academic transcript and we see a bunch of A's and B's, but what does that really tell us about what the employee can do? Well, what we want is we want our graduates to be able to explain that. We want them to have a parallel document, whether it's their LinkedIn profile or whether there's an experience record attached to this that says, you know, that assignment that I had in history where the professor made me work in a group? Well, now I can do collaborative work. I can do project management. I can do team building in so many ways. So we want that translation. That is the ultimate goal. In order to do that, you need to first and foremost bring faculty along and give them the resources that they need to actually map those career competencies. And the NACE competencies are some of the ones that we use, nationally recognized, as you know. We take those NACE competencies and we map them against the course syllabi so that now you as a faculty have learning outcomes, but you're translating those outcomes into career competencies that are understood by employers. And you're helping the students intentionally connect the dots between what you're doing in the classroom, why I'm asking you to do these assignments, and what that means for your future career and how you can speak to your employer about that. That's prong number one. Prong number two, I have established the President's Advisory Council of External Relations. These are 20 to 25 top executives in corporations. Here we're in Chicagoland, so we're very fortunate to have access to many people that are incredible. And they become my think tank. They become the people that partner with us, that help us to better understand what do employers need. But it's a two-way partnership, because not only do we need to understand what employers need, but guess what? Now we have the opportunity as an institution to help educate employers about this generation of employees and how they can improve their own work environment to better fit the needs of the graduates that are happening today, okay, and in the future. In addition, we collaborate around providing paid internships, which are critical to our students, as well as scholarships for our students. There are a number of opportunities, career fairs, they're invited to all that. Number of opportunities to engage with our students early on so that they can create a pipeline for their workforce in the future as well. And then the final piece of all this is really working with the student hands-on to provide them with the skills that they need to be competitive. So in today's AI world, as you know, and I'm sure we could spend a lot of time just talking about that, we use AI, we use VR to actually engage our students in virtual reality simulations of job interviews. Okay?
Artificial intelligence.
Incredible. And they can also engage in simulations where they're practicing giving presentations. And with this amazing technology today, you can tell, you will get immediate feedback that tells you, did you only look at one person when you were speaking? Did you use too many filler words when you were speaking? What should you have been paying attention to? So we have an opportunity to leverage technology in amazing ways. So we have brought additional technology to our campus to be able to support this initiative. So here's an example of an initiative, as you can imagine, complex, has numerous pieces, numerous parts. Previously, we would have to build each piece individually. There's one last piece that I wanted to mention, and that is during the summer, what we do is we provide faculty with what we call externships. So our corporate partners or industry partners allow our faculty to go spend a week, 2 weeks in their world so that they can see how skills are being used in real time, in real life, in that
Excellent.
workplace. Now, mind you, we're not looking for the scientists to go to the scientific corporation. On the contrary, we want to be intentional about our English professors going to the pharmaceutical company. We want to be intentional about our philosophy professors going into, some sort of tech corporation, because we know that these are transferable skills. And at a time when people are questioning the value of the humanities, the value of the liberal arts, I'm one to argue that in an AI era, these skills that come from the humanities, from the liberal arts, are now more critical than ever before. And so by spending that time in the corporate world, in industry, our faculty can then return and translate that experience and enrich the curriculum here. So again, these pieces would have taken 3 to 4 years to implement. But because we are nimble, because of our size, and because of the experience and the lessons learned along the way, we've been able to already go through 2 cohorts of faculty. We have 2 more cohorts ready to go. The partnership council that I mentioned is already set up and being launched this fall. And so it's exciting to be able to move this forward, because we know that in today's changing world, the faster we move, the more our students benefit.
Outstanding.
It's amazing. And you mentioned filler words, and we use an AI tool at Rise. It's a lot of companies are using this tool called Gong now, and it records all of your calls, and then you can get recorded transcripts and you can tag words and it'll show you you're using a filler word. Or the other thing that'll sometimes show you is you're over talking. You're on a call and you dominated the call, and it'll tell you what percentage of the call you were talking. And so I'm watching these AI tools come into the fold, and it's having the familiarity to engage with those like your students are is so wonderful. The other thing that really stood out to me in that answer was we often talk about feedback loops with industry. But as you were talking, I was thinking, well, what we really mean is industry telling higher ed what to do. And what I loved about your answer is you added, what can we teach industry? And then you also added this other angle of faculty. How do we add them to the equation so that they can go and be a part of that? It's actually a true feedback loop. It's not a one-way flow of information that we also think about. And the question that came to mind, since we were sort of talking about AI, we were talking about what employers need. Some of the research that we've been seeing is that you've got over 70% of students saying, I think my institution should hopefully prepare me with AI tools to be ready for the AI workforce. And I think a lot of provosts in some surveys I've seen are saying, we haven't gotten there yet. Everything's moving so quickly. And so how are you trying to stay ahead, knowing it's changing every couple of months?
Calling all higher ed marketing and enrollment management professionals. Hear, hear. The Insights EDU conference is back. This is your chance to level up your marketing and enrollment management strategies, and the EdUp Experience podcast will be there once again. Join us at the Ritz-Carlton, New Orleans, February 12th through 14th for an unforgettable conference. Registration is now open with early bird pricing.
Outstanding. Attention.
Registration is now open for the Middle States Commission on Higher Education 2024 Annual Conference, Protecting the Future, Champions for Higher Education, December 11th through 13th, 2024 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Don't miss out. Register today at msche.org/annual-conference or head to msche.org and click on the conference link. I'll see you there.
Hey, everybody. This is Elvin Freitas, co-founder of the EdUp Experience. Are you enjoying the conversation so far? Good. I hope so. Did you know that you can actually hear this conversation early before anybody else and ad-free, so you don't have to hear my voice during these ads? And did you also know that you could get extended episodes, bonus episodes, original content? That's right, original content and invites to special events, all while helping to sustain EdUp? Well, if you didn't know, now you know. So go to edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com and become a subscriber today. First, you got to sign up to our free email newsletter, and then you'll find out how to become a subscriber. Again, go to edupexperience.com.
Yes. So at the end of the day, let me start with the end in mind, and then I'll review how we're going to get there. At the end of the day, what I want our graduates to be able to do, I want our graduates to be the kind of employee that stand out, not because of all the knowledge that they have, but because of their ability to adapt, to adjust, to be flexible, and most important, to learn. I want them to have that passion to continue to learn all the time, because I believe, as you said, things are changing all the time. You know, in 3 months, what we're teaching now, wow, may or may not still apply. It's moving so quickly. So if you have individuals, I can tell you right now as an employer, I would much rather have an employee who is eager and enthusiastic, is a learner, takes initiative, can adapt, can be flexible, can look for creative ways of doing the job and making it better, than someone who thinks that they know everything that they need to do. And that's what employers tell me all the time. They tell me, look, we can teach them this. And you know that there are more and more employers that are getting into the business of just sort of teaching basic skills and content. But the things that I'm talking about, they can't teach. That's something that takes a long time to develop. And we can help students develop that way. So having said that, as things move with AI, we're launching an AI at AU initiative this year. And I was very intentional in waiting to do this because, again, things were moving very quickly. People didn't know what to do. Our AI initiative has education in mind in terms of educating our campus community as to what it is and how we can use it. We're looking at operational efficiencies. That's the second piece of what we're doing. And then we're looking at curriculum, meaning that we want there to be learning outcomes. We're working with, a pilot of a maturity model that allow us to assess ourselves, not just with AI, but with emerging technologies in general, and decide, are we at a exploring level? Are we actually using these tools, and what are we using them for? Are we creating with AI? And do we have the number 4 tier is, are we actually launching curriculum, credentials, and do we have an understanding of learning outcomes? And so the first thing we did, again, because I'm a huge believer on data and using that to leverage our information, is we did a survey of all of our employees. And we used this maturation model, and we said, tell us where you are with this. What are you doing with AI right now? And the information was fabulous. That actually then informed our AI initiative so that we would know where we needed to bring partnerships, leverage our education needs, et cetera. So we're reading a book as a whole campus this fall on AI. We're bringing the author to do a workshop and to speak to us about AI. We're already working on a credential that hopefully will be launched, if not in spring, for sure by summer of next year. We're looking at operational efficiencies, because I'm sure you both are aware now, whatever system you bring into an institution, technology-wise, has AI embedded in it. So if we're going to pay for that, then let's make sure we're optimizing that in whatever ways we can operationally. So again, multi-pronged approach, bringing the entire community together, not because we all have to do the same thing. And I think this was another lesson, going back to your question initially, that I have learned over my 30 years in higher ed. Even as you launch initiatives, you need to allow for different departments across the university to personalize that to their needs. You cannot use just one template and say, everybody get on board, but you have to, I believe in what I call a bottom-up engagement with a top-down support, which means, what does emerging technology look like for nursing? What does it look like for our humanities? What does it look like in admissions? What does it look like in career services? Different tools. And I believe that a university is successful in their use of technology when the technology becomes invisible. And let me repeat that, because this is really important. Mm-hmm. I believe that you will know when you have truly been successful with AI and any other system technology that you bring in, when the technology becomes invisible. Because the technology and the tool isn't the goal. The goal is to leverage that so that your people, and that includes students, employees alike, can spend more time in what actually matters and not be distracted by the technology. So our goal at AU is to integrate technology in what we do, okay? Because it should elevate what matters to us. And what matters are relationship, is collaboration, it's getting to know each other, supporting each other, partnering, moving ahead, and doing those things that technology continues to fall short of being able to do. And that's the human interaction.
Charlie, Charlie and I were talking about AI before we started recording. And just like other people who talk about AI, there's always this expectation that you don't want to seem like you don't know. So I recorded us. This is how we talked about it.
I know you know, all right? And I know you know I know you know.
Right.
See? That's how a conversation about AI goes. I like that you have such a data-informed way to approach it, because I talk about FOMO a lot. I was talking about it earlier, the fear of missing out. You don't want to be the person who goes, I don't know how to use AI. You may not know how to use it, but you go, oh yeah, I use it. I use it. I use it, Susana. I use it every day. Because it's talked about so much. And so most people don't know how to use it. No, they might know how to use it a little bit, but when you start to talk about scaling operations and using artificial intelligence, you said something that oh my goodness, I'm going to go back and I'm going to quote you on it, because you said you have to optimize AI with your current technology vendors that service you now are spending time integrating artificial intelligence through their operations, which serve you as the higher ed institution. So going out and buying some bolt-on AI program is typically going to be a huge waste of money, because one of those technology companies or vendors, every vendor is working to work AI in. So how do you take advantage of the AI that's being built for you now? How do you just become aware that it's happening rather than go out, because it is bright and shiny toys right now, you know?
Yeah. And I think that it really takes just simply asking your IT team, right? Asking your chief information officer to just say, can you please assess right now, do an assessment of the systems and the technology and the software packages that we already have in place at our university, and let me know which ones are actually upgrading to this AI version. And then can you point that out and let me know how can we leverage that? And then you can determine, which things are you going to launch? Which things are you going to wait on? Where do you need education for the community so that they know what to do? Something simple. Here's simple things that I'm amazed by the little things, but maybe they're not so little. You take your email. Okay. We now have AI capability to summarize tons and tons of emails that we all get. I probably get 400 emails a day easily, right? Well, I have
401 now, that to 402 now, Charlie.
Exactly. So you have a tool now that can help you summarize and categorize your email using AI. You have a tool for these kinds of Zoom meetings, where if we wanted notes to be summarized for us, you would enable the AI tool in this Zoom meeting. And at the end of this conversation, which you don't want to be distracted by note taking, you now have a summary of this meeting and this conversation, right? LMS systems, learning management systems. Now, if you're moving towards a learning management system, or you have an existing, fairly modern learning management system, you now have AI. So that means our faculty can now leverage that in the classroom in a number of ways. That's where you might need professional development opportunities and additional support for course design. And what does this particular tool mean for course design? So I think it's just about making sure, and higher ed has not always been good about this. We're very good about adding new things. We're not very good about getting rid of new things.
This is lunacy.
Or getting rid of existing things. And the fact is that we're not very good at that because we don't often take the time and pause to review, assess, and do an audit of where we are. So in order to continue to optimize and be effective and efficient, you need to be able to disrupt the work in a productive way. So I call it productive disruption, okay? So that you can assess, audit, and say what's working, what's not working, and how do we improve on this? And that should be part of every strategic plan at every university, really.
Susana, I'm wondering, when Joe made his comment about dealing with AI, and everyone wants to be able to say, I know what's going on too, I'm on top of this. But we all know that we get very entrenched in our ways as systems, as universities, as people. I think I've been pretty disappointed in myself with how much I've taken advantage of the technology. And I'm actually going to join.
Disappointed in you too, Charlie.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate that. And I'm taking a class this fall, actually through Rise, because I want to get there. And what it reminded me of is, I think, but I'm curious what you think about this, there's an opportunity for students who are graduating, if they are leaving, not even necessarily with, I know how to build AI systems, but I am AI literate, and I know how organizational change can work with these tools. You can really stand out because there's lots of Charlies out there who, as much as they want, they're still selling the old way, or they're still marketing the old way. And so do you think there's an opportunity to kind of pair this AI literacy with the core skill and really stand out to future employers?
I think absolutely it's necessary. So I'll tell you, I had the fabulous opportunity this summer. I was invited to spend a couple days at NVIDIA in Silicon Valley with a cohort of presidents, and we did a deep dive. And it was mind-blowing to learn. I mean, to learn not only where we are now, but where we're going, where NVIDIA is going. As you know, they're one of the top corporations right now when it comes to technology. But what that told me, okay, I walked away from those 2 days, the first thing I did is I picked up the phone and I called my son, who is now a senior in college. Okay. And I said, I need to know, have you been exposed to AI in any of your classes right now? He said, no. And I said, I'm going to send you 2 links and you need to go through these webinars right now. Okay. Before you graduate. That's how urgent I think this is. I think we're behind the curve. I think graduates that are graduating right now in December, in May, that have not been exposed to this will be behind. And so again, if you think about the maturation model and you go from, I have been exposed to this, I have a general idea of what it is, I am playing around with the tools and exploring and using them for some basic things, all the way to I'm creating with it, etc. If you look at that kind of maturation model, at this point, at a very minimum, I think all college graduates need to, 1, know what AI is, okay? 2, have at least played with ChatGPT, with Gemini, or Google AI, or whatever it is. You need to at least have gotten a sense of what does it mean to have a prompt, okay? What should I know about prompts? What should I know about the pros and cons of AI? What should I be aware of? Where are we with hallucinations? I mean, there's some basic knowledge that you should just be aware of. And I think right now, being able to do what you're doing, take a class, take a webinar. There are actually many free lectures out there that are being put out by universities, et cetera, that I think would be very useful. We decided intentionally to hold off on some of that AI 101. We want to integrate that into our courses so that it just becomes part of what you do. If you have a writing course, if you have a reading course, we want our faculty to be able to say, hey, we don't want to shy away from AI. We want you to use it, but here's how we want you to use it responsibly and what you need to be aware as a critical thinker and consumer of this information, right? So that that's our 101 version. What we're doing with our next credential is we really are launching a credential around the ethical use of AI and diving deeper into some of the implications of this technology today and where it's going. But basically, yes, I would encourage every college student right now, if you're not getting it where you are, then be proactive and find out how you can at least get your AI 101 out of the way.
100%.
We agree on that. And I do want to kind of come around in a circle, and Charlie, I'll pass back to you in a second, but I want to go back to kind of all the way back around to where you were talking about students articulating, I wrote it down, what college means. And we've talked, I can't tell you how many conversations I have had about the value of a college degree, hundreds, because I had them here on this podcast, so hundreds, with leaders all across the country talking about the value of a college degree. And I think this might be the first time anybody's articulated it in that way. So there's been so many conversations around, these are skills, right? These students need these skills. Employers want these skills. Here's the connection. But the student, if they say, hey, look, I took a bunch of these courses and they didn't teach me anything, how that hurts the value conversation that we're having right now. And that we as an institution have a responsibility to make sure that if you're here, you are able to articulate the value in the courses that you took and how that is basically creating a marketing pipeline for your university reputationally, for future referrals and whatever else. And I think we're missing that. I think we're all aligned that students need skills from the liberal arts. I think that where that's becoming pretty solid, but getting the student to be able to articulate what those skills are is a missing piece.
Absolutely. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think higher ed just has missed that little connection. And I'm telling you, I can go all the way back to my college years. And I was the kind of student, okay, and I'm going to admit this publicly here. I was the kind of student where I remember looking at my general education. And I was given this long list of courses that I need to, do from this area and that area and that area. It was kind of like your buffet, right? Do some of this, some of that. And I remember looking at that list and going, okay, this is my checklist. How quickly can I get through these? Which are the ones that are going to take the least time? Which are the easiest? Let's get that done so I can get to my major.
Familiar with that checklist.
Yes. And
I am not as familiar with that checklist because I thought you were going to say you were this type of student like I was.
Cheers.
I'm not as familiar with the checklist as you guys are.
No, it is. It really is a disservice to the student, because what happened to me. I would take a philosophy class and I thought, where in the world am I ever going to use philosophy?
So right.
Okay? It's like, come on. And who needs statistics, really, right? And the fact is that we need to be more intentional about connecting those dots with students so that they can see that, right? So that they can see that the philosophy class absolutely relates to their technology class, right? In terms of how we're looking at ethics, how we look at principles and values. We need to make sure that the writing class is now connected to, their business class, math. I mean, there are so many connections. So one of the things that I have told our community here at AU is, folks, I want us to stop talking about general education. I actually don't like the term general education. I think
hear.
Values it seriously. And so many of us in higher education are now referring that to our core curriculum. It is our core curriculum. It's foundational. Right? It's where you really want to build everything. But if we're serious about having a foundational curriculum, a core curriculum, then we need to ensure that our students are having more interdisciplinary experiences, that they're bringing those courses together, that they're actually thinking about the intersections of these disciplines, and that we no longer work in silos, but are very intentional about making those connections, which then helps them do exactly what I said before, Joe, and that's articulate their experience to an employer in a way that is meaningful for both the employer and the employee.
Charlie, I'll give it to you, but I want to say that someone on this podcast once said, because we were talking about this very thing, general education, I don't want to be educated generally. I want to be able to communicate how my education was of value. I think that's so right on. We really do a disservice by calling things general education. Go ahead, Charlie. I'm sorry.
No, I just wanted to admit my own story of being a student. And one of the things that got to me was critical thinking. It was the phrase was brought up constantly, and everyone was like letting us know that we should be really happy that we were learning to think critically, but it was never actually intentionally brought up. It was always through osmosis. And it was, if I did 8 separate check boxes, that would equal critical thinking at the end. And I remember sort of like sitting through some of these classes and going, I'm not seeing the connection, to be totally honest, because I don't know if Professor A talked to Professor Z and somehow in between so I really appreciate how intentional you're using words like serious and intentional. And it's a lot more thoughtful than just kind of hoping that it happens along the way.
Well, and Charlie, even what you just said, sometimes when I think about our first college going generation students, right? When I think about those students, I was one of them. When I went to college and people would talk to me about critical thinking, I didn't know what that meant, but I was too embarrassed to ask.
Right.
So sometimes even the words that we use, the language, the vocabulary is already out of reach of our students who haven't had that social capital and that experience in their life to be able to do that. So I like to talk to students when I talk about critical thinking skills. I say, we want you to be informed consumers of information. Okay. At a time when you're being bombarded by social media, by all kinds of information coming at you, in the same way that you would research your latest, Fit Watch or whatever, we want you to be able to think that way about the next TikTok post that you see. And what are those criteria that you should be considering when you are receiving that kind of information? So I think it's about, again, bringing students along, speaking their language instead of always expecting them to learn ours in academia. Okay. And that's meeting students where they are. So, I'm a linguist by training. So that kind of comes naturally to me. And being a second language learner of English as a second language, I just remember sometimes we assume that people are actually understanding the language we're speaking, and particularly our families, the families of our students. And no, we're not connecting. So we need that intentionality when we're communicating.
Yeah.
I add that to your point that you said earlier, just to go back to the technology, you'll know when you're successful when it's kind of when you're not experiencing it, when it's not in front of your face. And I immediately start thinking about the most successful companies in the world, like Amazon. You would think that Amazon exists to sell you products, but no, it's probably that it makes product buying easier so you don't have to go to the store, so you can spend more time with your family, right? So you don't know that the technology is helping you accomplish some other goal. And if students don't have to navigate our structures in higher education, they have more time to study and more time to succeed. And that's an important point. I thought I would just, sorry, Charlie, I've interrupted you twice, man. You're still here. So thanks for staying.
No, well, you had a much better point than I was going to bring up. So what you make me think of too is I would imagine on the teacher side as well, you think about things like learning management systems and the things that they have to interact with, and to be able to make that become invisible so that students can spend more time studying and they can spend more time with students.
Yes.
What a wonderful outcome to start to see those things become invisible. I just think what you said, Susana, as well, is if AI can put the premium on human skills, how do we use these systems to become invisible and just connect us more?
Yeah, I agree. And an example of that is chatbot technology, right? I mean, imagine operationally, but also in the classrooms, academically, as you think about assistants. These assistants, how long and how much time do we spend answering the same question over and over again? Now we have a technology that can begin to learn what those common questions are and be ready with answers. And what that does is it free up time so that you can have more meaningful and deeper conversations with your students, with one another, about other things that might be on your mind, but you needed this one question answered quickly, and you were spending all your time trying to figure out how to do that. So that's just a very simple application of what you're talking about, Charlie.
And you can go back and take a class on learning AI with your extra time, like Charlie will do.
That's right.
We want to close out every episode with the same two. Well, one's kind of not a question, but the same two questions for every guest. Number one, what else do you want to say about Aurora University? Open mic, no actual question, anything at all that you want to say.
I think what I want to say is that I absolutely love the fact that higher ed, and certainly at Aurora University, we still have this ability to build an amazing sense of community. That diversity is still viewed as a strength here for us, absolutely. And I'm particularly proud of the fact that our sense of diversity, the way we define diversity, is very broad. We spoke about being Hispanic serving, we spoke about being minority serving, but one thing I didn't share with all of you is that we have an amazing Pathways program for neurodiverse students. We have students who attend here who are on the autism spectrum. We serve students with who are part of the deaf community. We have students that are differently able. And I just think that that whole continuum just speaks to the changing needs of our population. And the more higher education can serve those needs, the better we all will be. And I'm just proud that Aurora University is very much focused on doing just that.
All right, the crystal ball to take us home. What do you see for the future of higher education?
I see more personalization. Again, we're dealing with a smarter and smarter consumer. For better or for worse, that's the reality, right? Adult learners, changing demographics, tough challenges for high school students who are questioning whether they should come to college or not. And I think many of those questions will only be answered when higher education can remain personal, flexible, adaptable, and meet people where they are. And that doesn't mean adding more initiatives and, shiny things to our plate. That means doing things differently and understanding how we can leverage this very powerful vehicle that transforms lives to actually be within reach of everybody who wants to do that.
Now, Charlie, you can see why this podcast becomes addictive, because you get to talk to people like Susana, and every time we do these interviews, we just come away with amazing insights. And what did you think about your first co-hosting gig here with Dr. Rivera-Mills?
It was amazing. I know we have AI note takers these days, but I've got about 3 pages of notes that I've actually taken here. So I just so appreciate how passionate and thoughtful about the future. I learned a ton.
Now I've got to decide, go to the judges here and decide if I can bring you back again, Charlie, based on your performance today. Judges, we're going to need you to weigh in here.
You just made the list.
All right, you get to come back again, Charlie. Nice job.
Like the crystal ball, the magic 8 ball worked well today.
Well done. Well done.
Dr. Rivera-Mills, we hope you had fun today getting to talk about Aurora University.
It was great. Thank you both for the conversation. I really appreciate the fact that you're elevating these conversations. I think that the less we feel like we have to reinvent the wheel and learn from each other and partner and collaborate, the faster and the further we will get. Well,
and you know what, one point we didn't get to, which we should have, is that there are not enough female Latina leaders in higher education today. In fact, we have searched high and far for as many Latinas as we can encounter, and we've connected with some great, amazing leaders. I'm going to interview another one from Laredo College, another amazing Latino leader. But I give you just immense credit and have so much respect for you, especially as you go back and you get to lead an HSI, and that's got to feel good.
It does. Thank you. Thank you, Joe. I appreciate that.
Ladies and gentlemen, my guest. She's Dr. Susana Rivera-Mills. She's your guest. She's the president of Aurora University, and Charlie and I have been lucky enough to interview her. You've just ed-upped. Higher education is evolving, and if you're in marketing and enrollment management, then you need to be at the Insights EDU conference.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
Insights EDU 2025 is happening February 12 through 14 in New Orleans, Louisiana. This is your chance to explore the latest trends in higher education and discover new and innovative strategies to level up your program marketing and enrollment. Hear from some of the best speakers in the industry, from companies like Google, LinkedIn, Adobe, and more. Registration is now open, so secure your spot while early bird pricing is still available.
Attention.
Registration is now open for the Middle States Commission on Higher Education 2024 Annual Conference, Protecting the Future, Champions for Higher Education, December 11th through 13, 2024 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Don't miss out. Register today at msche.org/annual-conference. We'll see you there.
Hey, everybody. This is Elvin Freitas, co-founder of the EdUp Experience. Did you enjoy that conversation? I hope you did. Did you know that you can actually hear this conversation early on and ad-free? And you can also hear extended episodes, bonus episodes, original content. That's right, original content, and invites to special events, all while helping to sustain EdUp. Did you know that? Well, if you didn't know, now you know. To become a subscriber, go to edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com to subscribe to our free email newsletter to learn how you can get access. Again, that's edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com.